Men are loved conditionally. What are others thinking? Are we? Story 1. Unconditional love comes from parents. You have to pull your weight in a relationship. Edit. Many people misunderstand my point. Unconditional love only comes from parents. I did not say it comes from all parents. Story 2. Everyone is loved conditionally. Even a dog's love is conditional. People often forget that the basics of being a decent person start well before. Oh, she says thank you when I open the door for her. No one accepts their once friendly spouse becoming a violent member of a hate group, for example. Story 3. Every human is loved conditionally. If a man ever says men are never loved unconditionally, ask him if he would still love a woman if she gained 200 pounds. Story 4. Everyone is loved conditionally. It is just that the conditions for men and women are different. Story 5. Unconditional love is toxic. If anyone in your life is adding to your pain or impeding your joy, it is healthier for you to stop loving them. If you love them unconditionally despite that, hopefully it is because you know that the amount you reduce their pain and add to their joy balances out within the universe. Story 6. My mom and dad love me no matter what. They may not like me all the time, though. So, two people exist who love me unconditionally. It doesn't go away. My dog loves me in his own way and definitely misses me to the point of anxiety when I'm not there. I see that as love. Everyone else, love is indeed conditional. But it sounds brutal and cold when stated that way. I doubt my girlfriend is constantly thinking about how much I'm doing for her. It's not do or die like that. Honestly, I conditionally love her. I'm not sticking around if she suddenly becomes a completely different person and treats me badly. Story 7. Everyone is loved conditionally. This crybaby, no one cares about men, whiny attitude is getting exhausting. Story 8. You can be loved unconditionally and still choose to end the relationship. Ending it does not mean you stopped loving them. It means you also loved yourself. Relationships need conditions to be successful and healthy. Love does not. Sometimes love means letting them go gracefully. Story 9. I agree. Women are also loved conditionally. Our needs might be slightly different, but one thing the two sexes have in common is that we do not want to be in relationships that fail to meet our needs. I do not see this as a bad thing. Healthy romantic relationships should be mutually beneficial, in my honest opinion. Story 10. No one is loved unconditionally. Even parents' love can end if the children do something considered unforgivable. Story 11. I'm genuinely happy to see the correct answer in this thread. This is the first time I've felt this way about this subreddit in years. What happened today? Did everyone have a delicious breakfast or something? Or are the unemployed bot commentators just not awake yet? Story 12. That applies to everyone, doesn't it? I love my wife, but if it turned out she was secretly harming puppies or something like that, my feelings would change quickly. Story 13. With all the discussion on this subreddit about women's worth and what they contribute, I do not think we should complain about men being loved conditionally. It seems to go both ways. Story 14. Women are often valued for their sexual attractiveness and usefulness. Many men leave their wives as soon as they are diagnosed with a chronic or serious illness. The only people who are loved unconditionally are children, by their mothers, and in some cases, their fathers. Story 15. Come on. If your spouse cheated on you, would you still love them unconditionally? If they stole your money? If they left you? What even is this question? Story 16. Any person who says this is a significant warning sign. Parental love is probably the closest one can get to unconditional love, but even then, everyone has limits. Expecting your partner to love you unconditionally is unrealistic. Story 17. There was a jazz professor who, in an interview, said he frequently had to tell his students that in that environment, the only people who really live or die on whether you are doing well or not are your parents. Everyone else will wonder where you went if you vanished but will move on. I have one or two people who love me no matter what. Expecting no matter what, in general, from most people is a bit insane. I have absolutely no interest in arguing who has it worse in a men or women way about this. Story 18. If you treat people poorly, why should they be vulnerable with you? Everyone deserves human rights, equal treatment under the law, and more. As adults, deserving something has nothing to do with love. Story 19. Unconditional love is a myth. No matter what kind of person you like them because of the traits and behaviors that make up their personality. That is why you are compatible to begin with. If those things change, or if you change, the feelings will also change, maybe for better, maybe for worse. Is it true that men are loved conditionally? Yes, and so are women. So are best friends, family members, and teammates. That is just how emotions work. Story 20. No one is truly loved unconditionally. Sometimes the conditions are extremely broad, but there are always certain conditions. Men tend to get away with a lot of wrongdoing. Story 21. People are loved conditionally. Even dogs will turn on you if you do things that cause fear and harm. Story 22. You have to accept the love you are given. Requiring love to be unconditional before years of marriage is itself offering only a conditional kind of love. Many men say they would die for someone they love, but that does not seem true in practice. Most of the time, men continue through life doing the same things. Single, married, or otherwise, they are going to do their own thing. Getting any attention or consideration from them is impossible. They solely focus on themselves, their own fulfillment, and the image they are projecting. Over and over, that is what unsatisfied wives say. Not his love is conditional, but more like his love is invisible. Story 23. It has already been said numerous times here, but everyone loves conditionally. We would not have record low dating, marriage, and birth rates if we were all loving everyone unconditionally. Story 24. The only unconditional love in this world is from parents. Everything else requires you to provide something to the other person. Story 25. The only unconditional love is a parent's love for their child. In all other relationships, you need to actually do something to be loved. That is not a bad thing. It helps society function properly. Story 26. You are really reaching a higher realm when you love unconditionally. It is hard. Usually, that kind of love is given to our children and the family dog. With the rest of the world, we try, but it is hard. Story 27. Unconditional love is another concept from the 1980s, used to sell self-help books. New Age ideas often oversimplify the complex while using large, made-up, meaningless terms to describe trivial matters. Nowadays, it is all the same, and many people buy into it to compete with social media bots over who is putting in the work. People need to be okay with being unconditionally ignored. By the way, I have been to therapy twice in my adult life after significant events. The therapists were professionals who kindly dismissed me after I had resolved my issues rather than extending treatment unnecessarily. Story 28. Men are loved conditionally. What do others think? Are we? It is always conditional for men or women. Story 29. Men are tolerated conditionally. One mistake, one flaw, one moment of weakness, and they are dismissed quickly by everyone, everywhere, every time. Story 30. I feel like my ex-wife loved me conditionally, so I understand, but I am not a fan of absolute statements like this. Every relationship is different. I have definitely seen the genders swapped in this scenario, and I am sure you have too. Story 31. It is true in my experience. The only unconditional love I can experience here is from myself. Everything else comes with strings attached as far as I can tell. I am hoping that can change given my changed relationship with myself. Story 32. 100% true. However, everyone else is the same. We could argue that others have fewer conditions to deal with, but nevertheless, conditions exist. Story 33. What if your current or future wife suddenly gained 500 pounds, complained about every little thing you did, and insulted your family and friends in front of them? Would you still love her? Of course not. Maintain a masculine sense of purpose and always try to date significant others as if you were courting them for the first time. That is what keeps romance alive. Story 34. Men leave a sick wife 5 times more often than women leave their sick husband. This reflects the reality of conditional love in sickness and in health. Story 35. I don't think any of the people who posted here understand what conditional love actually means. Yes, all love is conditional except dogs' love, sure. But the goalposts have been moved, and what was described as conditional in the past is nowadays transactional. Men, specifically young men, are loved transactionally nowadays. I don't know much about love myself, do I? That's something for you to say. Well, I have been in a happy, monogamous relationship for 15 years already, so take it as you like. Story 36. Of course, no one but a boy's mother loves him unconditionally. If you cannot provide utility for the woman you are with, she will no longer love you. Look at divorce rates of women who lose their jobs, which are very low, compared to divorce rates of men who lose their jobs, which are very high. Story 37. Unconditional does not exist in anything. It may be a moral stance with a lot of belief which some of us like to take, but it merely amounts to a self-lie and nonsense for the rest of the world. Everything on this earth is conditional, but maybe that phrase becomes a lesson in pedantics. Nevertheless, any feeling you have had or will ever have is connected to a stimulus, and this stimulus is just an occasion. So, take this however you want. I will never believe in an eternal expression of a feeling. Story 38. This is just anecdotal. Some are loved conditionally, some are loved unconditionally. Given the number of women I have known who have put up with really bad men for far longer than they probably should have, I am not sure this is a fast and hard rule. Story 39. Every transaction is conditional, the harshest of truths. Should it be that way? No, but that is another discussion. Story 40. With the exception of my children, everything is loved conditionally. The question is just the number of conditions. Story 41. I believe only God is capable of true unconditional love. All human relationships are conditional. It is more accurate to say that it is more common for people to overlook shortcomings and inadequacies in women than in men. Therefore, love, respect, and acceptance are far more conditional for men. Story 42. Conditional love is the default for women too. The condition for women is usually much more intrinsic, such as appearance or reproductive ability, giving the illusion that they are loved just for existing. Story 43. The only unconditional love on this earth is from dogs to their owners. Everything else is either conditional or eventually becomes conditional. Story 44. Women are also loved conditionally, in my opinion, if we are being truthful. There is just a different set of expectations. Story 45. I loved my ex-girlfriend unconditionally. It hurts that she did not feel the same, distanced herself from me, came back for a few days and then broke my heart. Story 46. My lived experience has shown this to be absolutely true. I have had multiple relationships in my life that fell apart during periods when I was going through temporary difficulties, and my partner found it unattractive that I needed her support. Story 47. It is true. Men are only loved on the condition that they are able to provide. With that being said, you do not build equity with women. They only care about what you are doing for them today. Story 48. My fiancé met me and fell in love when I had nothing. I was in and out of the hospital for 3 months, near death, and working as a substitute teacher. She loves me unconditionally. People love people unconditionally. Questions like this imply there is a rampant epidemic and create an echo of toxic ideals. Story 49. Everyone is loved conditionally, and that is not inherently a bad thing. If you are suggesting that the condition men receive love on is somehow based on financial success, this is a different issue. In any relationship, whether romantic or platonic, you can cross a line and lose the love. If love cannot be lost, it has very little value in the first place. Story 50. Well, about that parent thing, their version of unconditional love is not mine. In my experience, parental love comes with many conditions. I have kids, and I don't agree with a lot of their toxic, self-destructive behavior, but I truly love them and try to show it in a way that they understand. I take the time to put thought into it. It wasn't and isn't that way for me. I am only loved by my parent when I fulfill one of their needs or wants. Story 51. Unconditional love tends to be from parents to children and for pets. Everything else is conditional. Gender is irrelevant in this. Story 52. Everyone is loved conditionally. Anything else is a lie. Take a child, for instance. They might not be loved once they grow up if they become something their parents would not approve of. A girl or boy might not be loved by their partner if they start gaining weight or change in some way. Everyone has a condition, but the important point here is that it does not really matter. There are people whose condition for some person is so extremely difficult to break that you would have to intentionally try to do so. Story 53. Everyone is loved conditionally. In this context, the conditions are usually not being unfaithful and not being abusive. For men specifically, some of the expectations are deceptively simple, but the perceived and observed reactions to any failure of these expectations are devastating and contribute to the loneliness epidemic. Story 54. Everyone is loved conditionally in relationships. Do not be a toxic person, and you will not have to worry about it. Story 55. So much nonsense in many comments. I have never stopped loving someone because they gained weight or became disabled. I have never stopped loving someone because they lost their job. I have never stopped loving someone because I thought I could find someone better. It is also completely possible to recognize that someone is unhealthy for you, so you leave the relationship, even while still loving them. Many people confuse love with physical attraction, happiness from being cared for, or receiving many gifts, which are all definitions of selfish, conditional love. Story 56. It is culturally true that men are conditionally loved. When we find a woman who loves us unconditionally, we still feel pressure because we do not want to lose her. I am guilty of this with my wife. Story 57. Every kind of love is conditional, and that is normal. You are loved or not for who you are. If you are unpleasant and people have a bad time when you are around, they will not like you. That is logical. If you want to be loved, be lovable. Story 58. Thinking in terms of unconditional or conditional is incorrect. There is no such thing if you want to reason realistically and not absolutely. You can think in terms of a bar. Definitely, the bar for women to be loved is much lower in terms of effort compared to the bar for men. And sorry women, but your beauty, given by nature and not earned, matters a lot when finding potential partners. Men, adults, not high school kids, have to achieve the bare minimum, and much more is expected from them. Fewer flaws are accepted. They need to be respected. Would a man take a homeless woman if she is attractive and young enough? Maybe. Would a woman take a homeless man home? Doubtful. Story 59. Unconditional love is a myth. There are always conditions for love, sometimes abstract and indirect, but they are always present. Story 60. As an adult, I am finding out that my parents' love for me is conditional. Maybe that is the way it is supposed to be as we age into fully grown adults. I find it odd because when I look at my daughter, the love I have for her is completely unconditional and undiminished. I would never have those feelings for her spoil or fade. My love for my husband is conditional. I have no problem saying that. I love him, but those feelings could change. Story 61. No one loves anyone unconditionally. Maybe parents do, and sometimes not even them. Feels like men are crying about nothing. They were mommy and daddy's golden boy, and now they are out in the real world. Story 62. It depends on the woman you choose and accept to be by your side. I feel loved unconditionally after a lifelong relationship. Story 63. My whole life, I cannot point to any adult who cared more about what I could do for them than for me personally. My current wife loves me somewhat unconditionally. Weakness is not allowed in my life. I am tired. Story 64. Sorry, but this is a broad question. I would like to have some Jordan Peterson questions answered first. What do you mean by conditional? After that, is not conditionality supposed to be a part of love? At the very least, in a logical sense, without the option to opt out, love could never be love at all. This seems like the wrong question to me. Story 65. As a man, your value to society is based on what you can give. Almost nothing is given to you, but you are expected to give everything, even your life when it comes to it. It is just part of the game. Story 66. I do not know. I do not really agree. My husband loves me unconditionally. At least, that is the way it has felt for the last 12 years. I think when you find the right person, unconditional love is part of what will bind the relationship together. Story 67. I only love people with mental illness unconditionally. My grandfather had dementia, and my brother has schizophrenia. Other than that, no one is entitled to unconditional love, certainly not a spouse, male or female. Story 68. Women are loved conditionally. Parents and siblings are the only people who would love you unconditionally. Story 69. Absolutely true. When you witness someone stop loving you because you did not give them something they wanted, you realize what is really going on. If you have good parents, then those are the only two people who will ever really love you the way love is thought of. Everyone else has a condition or an agenda. Story 70. I now believe my ex-fiancée loved me only if certain conditions were met. I think she really wanted the human male version of her dog. Someone obedient and compliant who would do what she said. Too long to get into the whole dynamic of our relationship, but I truly felt her love for me was tied to the chores and housework I did for her. She had a hang-up about her past and future husband not sharing the housework enough with her. It didn't matter that we didn't live together or that she shamed me for doing things at my house instead of spending all my time with her. 2 reasons she actually listed for wanting to break up, tied to "you've changed," were that I had to leave her house earlier on Saturday evenings, 9:30 instead of 10, because I had to iron my suit and shirt for church the next morning, and that I didn't snow blow for her during the last snowstorm. It didn't matter that I couldn't get out of my own neighborhood because the city hadn't snowplowed yet. Story 71. Like others have said, you have to pull your weight in a relationship. While that is completely true, the culture has become a little unbalanced. There are too many men who gladly carry all the burden of a relationship just for the privilege of having a woman in their life, and too many women who expect this and encourage others to do the same. No one should suffer that, man or woman. It does not matter how attractive, successful, or charming the other person is, or how much you love them. But it has become normalized that men have a list of expectations they need to meet to be considered a man in the eyes of many women, while having any expectations for a woman is often labeled as sexist. In reality, no one is loved unconditionally, but cultural opinion and the fact that women are often seen as gatekeepers to sex make it feel like men are loved conditionally while women are loved unconditionally. There are forces that enforce this perception because it seems beneficial to do so. Women are already valued more than men because they are crucial to the continuation of the species. We are biologically predisposed to want to protect them over other men. Then there is the sexual aspect. The things men do for intimacy would be amusing if they were not so unfortunate. This is not just criticism. I have done some very foolish things myself when driven by passion. Story 72. I am old. I have never been truly loved by a woman. It is more a deal they strike, for resources, for status, for emotional management, or for something else, but it is not really the same thing that men feel when they say love. It may be loving or nurturing or 50 other things that men desire, but it is just not the same run in front of a bullet feeling that men experience. The last time a woman said, "I love you," to me was about 8 hours ago. I know she believes it to be true because she was experiencing a chemical and emotional attachment in the moment, and I am grateful, but it is not the same meaning I have when I say it. 15 minutes from now, all that could change. When I say, "I love you," it means I will die for you. None of this is a criticism of women. It is just how we are designed by our creator and evolutionary pressures. Story 73. Everyone is loved conditionally in an adult relationship. However, what people do not like to acknowledge is that the conditions are much harsher for men than for women. Story 74. I would say it is more like a spectrum. Conditional and unconditional are absolutes. Men tend to be loved closer to the conditional side of the spectrum, whereas women are closer to the unconditional side, although not entirely unconditional. There has to be room for nuance. Story 75. Definitely. I am under no illusions. My wife, mistresses, and everyone else in my life are only there because I am rich. When that ends, so will they. Story 76. It is the truth. We are only loved when we have something to offer. We are not born with inherent value. Coupled with those who love opportunistically, it makes sense. Story 77. While modern women achieve college degrees more often than men, most women want a man who has higher earnings and higher status than herself. In addition, She expects the man to provide emotional connection as every Disney princess deserves. Even if the man provides a higher level than she is accustomed to and is a good man, this becomes the new standard. She will expect ever higher levels. Fail to do so, and you will find yourself on the way out. Furthermore, adult responsibilities result in a mature relationship quite different from emotional connection. She may regard this as insufficient. Fortunately, I have the unconditional love of my 2 elderly parents and my 3 adult children. Story 78. Only children and women are loved unconditionally. Men are loved based on what they provide or sacrifice. It is not something we enjoy, but we grow to understand that is just the way things are. Story 79. Very few men are actually loved in this modern world. Women have made relationships transactional, and they love how much they can get from a man. However, if a man loses his job, 99% of women would not stick around. Feminism has created 2 distinct categories of women. First, there is the strong, independent type who are so masculine that most men do not want to be in a relationship with them because it is like being with another man, and no straight man wants that. Then, there are the money-grubbing gold digger types, who are basically just sex workers, doing as little as possible for as much as they can get. Somewhere along the way, it became acceptable for both of these types of women to berate and belittle men and make unsubstantiated accusations against men who are automatically deemed guilty regardless of the facts. There is a third type of woman who was not created by feminism, the traditional wife type. These are genuine women with good morals and family values, but they are few and far between and are often unfairly grouped into the same category as the rest. They are the collateral damage of feminism. So no, men are not loved conditionally or unconditionally because they are not really loved at all. They are merely tolerated until someone better comes along with a thicker wallet, and then they are cast aside quicker than last year's fashions. Story 80. Men are expected to provide and nothing more. We are replaceable, and how much we are loved is based on how well we provide. If a woman quits her job to go back to school to give herself and her children a better life, she is revered for it and receives nothing but cheers and support. If a man does this, the double standards are real. Story 81. I think it is nonsense. Look at how many men leave their sick wives. Observe how many men resent the women in their lives for not wanting intimacy or gaining weight. Story 82. I think there is some truth to the statement, and I understand what it is trying to convey. However, no one is truly loved unconditionally. The point Chris Rock is making is that unless men can provide something financially, they are considered useless by society. Money, as we all know, is hard to come by. For women to receive the same love, all they really need to do is be pleasant, nurturing, and available. This is not to say it always works out for women, but there is a reason women are rarely referred to as bums, even though financially, they could be in the same situation as a male bum. Story 83. Sometimes in my darker moments, I think that men are never loved by women at all, even conditionally. All relationships seem parasitic and transactional. Story 84. I mean, it is the truth. Love for men is very fickle in many places and situations. Many men are only loved and valued for what they can produce or do for society and their families. Story 85. I have been this way for as long as I can remember. Males are taught from day one that they have no option but to contribute. Story 86. I think the wording is wrong, but the sentiment is understood as true. Men have to earn love and respect from everyone else, while for others it is the default. Story 87. Yes. As long as we straighten up and fly right, we are loved. If we deviate from the expected path, we are ostracized. Try it sometime. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.